what do we need to adapt to ultimately recognize that we're not reaching the person not because they don't have a desire or an ability to do this job, but because there are barriers in place for that individual, and we need to be able to overcome. Because, just because, and I don't, just like you try to use different terms, but just because I grew up in what I would call a stable household, where like when I walked in the house, my mother would be like, "You got a letter from the city of Albany, like you better open this right now and figure out what it is that next step is, because I know this is what you're the job you want on." But like that was because the household I grew up in, my mother stayed home, took care of us, took care of her mother and my father's parents, who both lived in our house while my father was working 2 full-time jobs, and we were able to do that. There's a lot of people, the kids you just talked about, if mom's working 3 jobs, the system, and I don't want to stereotype, but our system has taken the father out of the house because we've arrested him. He's got a drug conviction. I was talking to somebody else about drug policy yesterday. There's a drug conviction, so we're not now letting the father move back into the house because God forbid we do that. We'll kick everybody out of the house because somebody with a drug conviction can't live there. So, all of the circumstances that might exist for somebody. And now that kid who's coming home from school might also have to work, isn't getting the mail, the stability's not there. What are we doing to try to foster those relationships and say, what are the barriers in place to ensure we're not failing you out? Or like, what is it? What is our psychological test really testing? And does it have its own biases? And like, what are we looking at when it comes to the fact that, we are ultimately getting more white kids from the suburbs that are passing this than young Black men and women from the inner city? Like, why is that happening? So, I mean, we need to continue to look at that. We need to make sure that, we have culturally competent leaders looking at things, and that our human resources offices are paying attention to that, and that we're just not relying on the old civil service ways of doing